Hey guys, it's me, Shayla, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. So as I mentioned in my previous video, I had a baby back in September, and during my pregnancy, labor, delivery, postpartum journey, there was so much I didn't know. And not only that I didn't know, but that I felt like people did not warn me about, because people tell you when you're pregnant, they tell you everything about their pregnancy, about their delivery. They tell you horror stories. They tell you how much they loved being pregnant. People have no filter when it comes to babies and pregnancy. So I was kind of shocked to learn these things on my own. So today I'm only going to be doing 7 things that people didn't warn me about, but I can definitely do a part 2 of this if you guys enjoy this kind of information. So let's get right into it. Okay, so number 1 is how tired you are, especially in your first trimester. I don't know if anybody else experienced this. If you didn't, God bless, you are so lucky, because I was a zombie my first trimester, especially like the first 6-7 weeks, like the first half of the first trimester. I was sleeping like 10 hours a night, was still falling asleep at work, and would still have to take a nap when I got home from work. And then when I was awake, I didn't have energy to do anything still. Now, it was probably a combination between, the pregnancy and the hormones. That's given. But also, I was a big coffee drinker before I got pregnant. I mean, I would have 5-6 cups of coffee a day. I could kill a pot of coffee on my own. And obviously, when you're pregnant, they want you to cut back on that caffeine because that's too much. It's too much for somebody who's not pregnant, I feel like. But it's way too much when you are pregnant. So I cut back to 2 cups of coffee a day. And so cutting back on my caffeine plus being pregnant, I was a literal zombie, I swear. So another thing, everybody's familiar with pregnancy food cravings, right? That's like a common thing everyone always asks when you have a weird food craving. Oh, are you pregnant? But these cravings are unlike anything else. So the second thing that nobody warned me about is how long these cravings last. I'm telling you, weeks, months. There was a month where all I wanted to eat were those Lifesaver hard mints. I think if you watch one of my pregnancy updates, I only did 2 of them because I was exhausted. I mentioned that I was craving mints, the Lifesaver hard peppermint mints. I was going through a 3-pound bag of those a week, and I only wanted those for a month. I didn't want anything else. So that's all I wanted for a month. And then all I wanted were pineapples for weeks too. So these cravings aren't like a normal, like, oh, I really want buffalo chicken, and then you have it one night and then you're over it. No, these, you can eat as much of them as you want. That craving's not going to go away until your body decides to want something else. So the third thing is kind of the opposite of the food cravings, but the food aversions. This rarely, at least I hadn't heard when I was pregnant, before I got pregnant, anybody talking about food aversions. I know a lot of people became really smell sensitive, but for me, some of my favorite foods became nauseating. The thought of zucchini, which is random because I love zucchini, and also it's zucchini. It's not like super flavorful food that could kind of be polarizing, but the thought of zucchini grossed me out. And I learned that the hard way when I made a whole dinner. I made zucchini noodles and I couldn't eat the zucchini noodles, and they were like all intertwined in the entire meal. That's when I learned the hard way, and that never went away through my whole pregnancy. And then Brussels sprouts, which are my favorite vegetable. I couldn't stand the sight, smell, thought of Brussels sprouts. It grossed me out. Disgusting. And those are like I said, my favorite vegetables. So food aversions were definitely something I was not prepared for. Okay, the next one, the biggest one for me, was all the unsolicited advice, horror stories, and touching. I'm not a touchy-feely person. Let's put that out there first. But to have strangers touch you without asking for permission. First of all, if you asked for permission, I would have said no anyways. That's just how I am. I don't want you touching me. But a lot of people don't even ask you to touch you. They touch your stomach. They rub your stomach. They comment on how big your stomach is. That just drives me crazy. And then all the unsolicited advice that is not factual. You know, if you're going to tell me, oh, you know, you would feel so great if you did XYZ, or no, it's like crazy advice. Like, and not even advice, people just being ridiculous. Like, I was getting my first cup of coffee for the day and someone came up to me and said, oh, coffee is bad for you when you're pregnant. And at this point, I was just so tired and so sick. I just didn't even say anything. I just walked away. But later in my pregnancy, somebody said that to me, and I was 8 days over my due date, and I was just sick of it all. And I had a very snappy, not so inappropriate, I mean, I think it was pretty funny, but it was not appropriate to make that remark that I did back. But the unsolicited, untrue advice. For the caffeine thing, you're allowed 200 milligrams of caffeine a day. Don't start drinking coffee if you weren't a coffee drinker before, but it's perfectly okay to have a cup of coffee. But that, a woman yelled at me and told me I was hurting my baby because I was standing about 2 inches away from a countertop. She thought I was gonna like lean on it, but even if I was leaning on a countertop, I'm not putting all my weight on my stomach, you know what I mean? Anyways, the unsolicited advice touching horror stories that people decide to tell you. As if pregnancy and labor and delivery isn't already daunting enough, people decide they need to tell you their horror stories as well, which is just ridiculous. So that was something I was not warned about. Okay. Something that started almost immediately, which I wasn't expecting. I knew you became out of breath later in your pregnancy, right? Because the baby's taking up space, pressing on your diaphragm, you know, decreasing your lung capacity, all that good stuff. But you become out of breath in your first trimester, like before you even start showing you're pregnant. And I mean, I always take the stairs at work. I would walk up and down 4 or 5 flights of stairs all day. I was walking around all day. I barely could get up 1 flight of stairs without huffing and puffing. It's something about the hormones I don't really remember off the top of my head. If somebody does know why you become out of breath, leave it below because it's fascinating. But the hormones in your body, convince yourself to take deeper breaths and more frequent breaths. So you become very out of breath with doing like nothing. So imagine trying to run. If you're a runner before, you can continue running during your pregnancy as long as your doctor says it's okay. But can you imagine? I had to do a stress test on a treadmill when I was 8 weeks pregnant, and I was so out of breath, like embarrassingly out of breath for myself. I mean, they said that I did a lot better than most people, but for me, I was out of breath after jogging for like 5 minutes, which is what at the time was embarrassing to me. So you get very out of breath when you're pregnant. Another thing is that during your pregnancy, you have tons of doctor's appointments, which I know and I enjoy because, you know, you're checking on the baby all the time, making sure that the baby's growing healthy and there's no issues, and if there are issues, they're caught early, and so you can just be prepared as possible. I loved my doctor's appointments, I really did, and luckily my job was flexible enough where I really didn't have any issues scheduling those. But one thing that I was surprised about, because my sister-in-law was pregnant at the same time I was. We actually, our girls are less than 4 weeks apart, which is awesome. But how differently doctors or midwives or whatever you have, how differently they all do things. Even in the same practice, they all do things so differently. Like, I know people who are getting ultrasounds more often, and not because they were high risk, but just because they did a lot more ultrasounds. I got my anatomy scan, and then I didn't really see the baby until I was about to deliver. So like at 18, 19 weeks, I had the anatomy scan to make sure the baby was happy, healthy, all the good stuff, had 10 fingers, 10 toes. The heart was working and the bladder, all that good stuff. If you're pregnant, you know what the anatomy scan is. And then I didn't get to see the baby until I was 40 weeks pregnant. Some people get another ultrasound in there at some point, but I knew the baby was happy. I mean, not happy. I was hoping she was happy, but I knew my baby was healthy because of the Doppler, you know, hearing the heartbeat. I felt great. I didn't have any pain. I mean, aside from the normal pregnancy pains, I didn't have any pain or bleeding or anything like that. So it was fine. So they do things so differently. And then, like, I didn't get examined, like my cervix didn't get examined until I was 40 weeks pregnant. And I know some people who, as soon as they were doing their weekly appointments, which I think starts at 36 weeks, were getting examined every week, and even before then they were. That didn't happen for me until actually my due date. And then things like that, you know, everybody does things differently, and they advise you to do things differently. So be prepared for that. So while you're pregnant at the same time as somebody else, and might even have a doctor in the same practice as them, they might be recommending completely different things. So just be prepared for that. So what one doctor says might not be wrong, it just might not be what your doctor is saying. So that's something I was not prepared for either. And then the last one is actually a good surprise that caught me off guard, but was how amazing you feel in the second trimester. I mean, obviously not everybody feels this way, but I was blessed enough that my second trimester was amazing. Like the second I woke up that morning, the day I was into my second trimester, I didn't have any nausea. I didn't feel like a zombie. It was amazing. I felt energetic again. That's when people were like, oh, you're glowing. All of that good stuff started to happen. I mean, I felt so good. I literally hiked a mountain on my 20th week of pregnancy, and that in the White Mountain region. And then I even hiked the part of the Grand Canyon. So I literally felt amazing during my second trimester. And that's when you start to show too. So you're popping and you really look pregnant. People aren't just looking at you like, oh, is she gaining weight? But you look pregnant, you start to feel good, you're happy, you're not too big yet where you're uncomfortable, you start to feel the kick. So the second trimester is like heaven. That's like the part of pregnancy that I actually enjoyed. And that felt really good for me. So definitely how good you feel during the second trimester was not something I was warned about in a good way. It was a really nice surprise after feeling so crappy during my first trimester. So guys, those were the 7 things that nobody warned me about during pregnancy that I experienced. I could go on forever on this topic because I feel like there are tons of things about pregnancy that I wasn't warned about. But let me know in the comments below what you feel like nobody warned you about, that you did not expect to experience during pregnancy. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, that like button, so that I know that you guys are enjoying this content. And then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well to get notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.